Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today I am gonna recommend some queer sci-fi fantasy. This is the last one that will be in the honor of Faes and Gaze, which was my previous book club co-hosted mostly with Cecilia and then some other people over the years. That was a book club focusing on promoting and reading queer sci-fi fantasy. The book club does sadly not exist anymore as a monthly format, but we are doing occasional 24-hour readathons or maybe other types of readathons up in the years where we still read queer sci-fi fantasy. I liked the whole idea of the book club when it started was because I felt like at the time in publishing it was not a lot of queer sci-fi fantasy. But now it's more and more. I'm not saying that obviously it's never going to be probably perfect, not until there's been many more years, but I feel like having queer characters and publishing has changed a lot since, for over the last few years. I feel like where it's easier to find queer sci-fi fantasy while that meant something completely else a few years ago. So I think that is amazing. It makes my heart happy. Obviously there's so many more improvements that needs to be made overall, but it makes my heart incredibly happy, and I'm really happy for the development of publishing, even though sometimes I feel like we are taking 2 steps forward and then 14 steps back. Still, I have made 2 other videos like this where I went through all the books that we read and basically just talked more about like generally what they're about, etc. Obviously, as a book club, we didn't love every book as much because obviously you don't always know if the book is going to be good or bad, but I do still believe that each and every one of these books, there is people out there that can love them, and I think it's nice to have them as a like general list in these videos, even though I personally didn't love all of them, but I definitely can see parts of them that someone else can love in them. I obviously want to make more queer sci-fi fantasy recommendations videos in general, but the ones I made so far have been the books we read for Faes and Gaze. That was a long intro. Let's get started. We did at a point take a little break from Faes and Gaze to see if we still wanted to do the club. So this is all our 2022 picks, and then the ones we did in 2023. In January 2022, that's such a long time ago. Oh my god. We read The Darkness Outside Us by Elliot River. I think, to be honest, this was one of our most successful books in the regards that the discussion that we had for this was absolutely incredible. I will leave the live show links to all of these down below, by the way, if you're interested to hear more in-depth thoughts. I feel like it's the kind of book where you have to read it to see why it is the way it is, like why it is so fun to read it, because obviously I don't want to tell you now the thing that makes it so fun. I don't know, I'm trying to not give stuff away, but it basically follows a main character that you cannot expect me to remember the name of, and he wakes up in this ship that he needs to do repairs, and they are going to save his sister in another place because they are not on Earth anymore. They're in a ship in space. And then he's there with this other dude. And then obviously, them being there alone, love might sparkle, as you maybe would want to know, since it is a queer book. Even though obviously you can have a queer book without having any romance, obviously. I think that this is an amazing book if you're like haven't read that much sci-fi and then you want to get a bit more into it. I think that this is a great starter book. It's very approachable. It is YA. It's like super easy to get into. Also, as a person who has read a bit more sci-fi, I found it super fun. Honestly, just the twists, the characters, and even though like there was stuff in here that was like, this part is weird, and like, is this part, was to say like, is this just out of convenience in a way? It was just so enjoyable. It did what it wanted to do so well. It keeps you on your toes, and I kind of want to reread it and just experience it again. It was wild. I thoroughly enjoyed it so much, and I would highly recommend it for anyone. Then our February 2022 pick was Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. This one is a really weird book, but it was a great time as well. So this one we have one of our main characters escaping from this cult. She gives birth to 2 children, like twins, and they grow up in the wilderness. And then there's this weird, almost fungus powers in it that is super weird. Like the aspects of the story that was like magical was super weird and funky, but like done really, really well. And then obviously we follow a cult and like trying to get out of this mindset, etc. And then also having children that goes up in the wilderness. I feel like we have many different tropes, or can we even call it tropes? You know what I mean? That plays together in the story, and it is written incredibly well. It is a very fascinating story. I don't know what to say, but I feel like what you experience in this cannot be replicated anywhere else. And that's what I got to say about it. Then we read First Sister by Lyndon A. Lewis in March 2022. Sorry, I had to quickly skim over the synopsis because I don't know how to describe this book. We follow several point of views where we have one of them who is like a nun in this space. I was gonna almost call it not kingdom, what's it called? Hierarchy in a way, and then they like have any rights, and then they're like fighting for the position of first sister. And then obviously start to question a bit of their beliefs because they are working in this place that maybe is not so good. And then we have another character that is like out fighting, and then we have another character who's looking for someone, if I remember correctly. It has these different pieces that do come together in a bit of a fun way. And I am very fascinated by this because I felt like it didn't explore the world as well in the first one, but I know there are sequels. I wonder how the world will develop in the next few books, and I feel like I should read them. The only thing holding me back is that the sequels are very expensive, and I'm like, I could borrow them, but yeah. It definitely takes some turns as well, and it is this like space opera kind of thing where we have a start of a galactic war. It has interesting concepts that I wonder how will be explored. Then we have A Master of Jinn by P. Jelly Clark. This one is set in Cairo in 1912, and we have a main character that just started in this investigation bureau that investigates supernatural cases, and then we have these murders happening, and then she is going to, well, start investigating this, and this has connection with many different things. I don't know how much I should say, but it takes some twists and turns this one as well. And this one was very fun for me in a way that I knew who was the bad guy instantly. I don't remember if the others picked up on it, but I knew from the get-go, and I felt very proud of myself. But I really want to reread this, actually. I want to read other like short story things in this universe because I feel like I heard a lot of people say that they fleshed out the story much more, and I wish there is more coming, like full sequels, because it's like we can just have different cases, because it's an investigation thingy. Super, super fun. Cool setting. Cool and woven magic from legends. Then we have Iron Widow, which was the May pick. I don't know if I said the months for every book, but you get the point, by Shiran J. Shao. This one is the first one in the series, and we are waiting for the second book intensely. This will follow a main character that goes out on this revenge plot. Our main character's sister had been killed because young girls are recruited to basically be batteries in these mecha bots, and then they get sucked out of their life force when they go into these, and our main character volunteers to do the same so that she can kill the dude that killed her sister. And then things take a turn, because I feel like when you hear the kind of plot, especially in a like a YA, I was going to say fantasy, but it is a sci-fi, you think a certain thing, but then I feel like this one managed to take all the tropes you know from those kinds of stories and really twist them around. Absolutely incredible in that regard. And then, the twists in the end. I'm definitely going to reread this before the second one comes out to refresh everything, but absolutely stunning book. And this one actually has a poly relationship, which was really nice. And I didn't say the rap in the other books, but life. Then in June, we had Master of One by Jada Jones and Danny Bennett. This one is also a multi-POV where we are collecting these different characters for different circumstances to steal this thing. I wish I had enjoyed this more, but I feel like the audience for this book was not me, and that is okay. It could definitely be a very exciting book for people, and I feel like there is definitely a lot of enjoyment to be had in this book. And it's like a fun, like heist, quick pace kind of story. So if that appeals to you, then you have something to read. Then we have Bluebird by C.L. Pierlot. This one is about a main character who has this ship where does she smuggle or just like outlaw thief gunslinger. Yeah, she's just like chilling on a ship, a bit like Han Solo in Star Wars. And then she maybe starts caring more when she gets this person on board that she's going to help, that is involved with different things, that has a bigger picture, to say it like that. So she started to go out on a different journey than she usually has been on. You need to save the day through this. So this is another like spaceship thing kind of thing, exploring different parts and different planets. And it's a fun time. It's a fun time. The only thing that put me off on this was that I thought we would be cute lesbians in a ship. And we weren't, because our main character is not together with the person that is on the ship. She's together with someone else. So if you put it after mom, because it was promoted as cute lesbian traveling around on the ship, that was what I expected. So take away those expectations. It's still obviously a fun read outside that. But I was just going to tell you now, so that you don't expect the same as I did when I went into it. Then we read Lake Lore by Anna-Marie McLemore, which follows these two. I think at least one of them was non-binary, but now I can't remember if both were. But they met underneath this like magical place underneath this lake. And then it's been like 7 years. And they haven't spoken since then, and now they start to connect again, and then I try to figure out like what actually happened there, why simultaneously also thinking about their identities, etc. When we read this book, someone called it like a bit non-binary 101 kind of book, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is bad. Obviously, I think a lot of people could benefit from reading this book. I think it was beautifully written. It told a beautiful story. Anna-Marie writes, very lyrical and pretty, so it fits really well with the atmosphere you get from this as well. Then we read The Memory Librarian and Other Stories of Dirty Computer by Janelle Monáe. Different stories written by different authors, but based on that album. And I haven't even listened to the album to this day. I'm terrible. Don't look at me. And this one has different like short stories that is set in this world. I was looking at like the synopsis behind here because I don't even know how to describe this book. Like there was very different kinds of stories in it. Some were really cool. I really liked the one that was called Time Box. I really like that one. That was my favorite, because that is like based on concepts that I think too much about in my brain. But as in short stories, some hit, some didn't. But obviously the ones that hit me could be hated by someone else, and the ones that I personally didn't find that interesting could be really interesting for someone else. So whatever you're thinking, check it out. There was at least some really good writing in here, but some of the concepts for me was hard to grasp, but it was very interesting. I was gonna say that it was based on an album, etc. It was just an interesting way to approach a book, even though I haven't even listened to the album. Then we read The Book Eaters by Sunji Dean. And this one, we have main character coming from these people that look like humans, but they are not. And they eat books to live, like they need to eat books, which is a very interesting thing to think about. And as they read books, it kind of forms them in a way. So the way that they are raised is that they need to eat certain books to have certain opinions, which is a very interesting thing to think about as well. But then sometimes a certain thing happens. Our main character got this child, because basically she is a girl, so she was forced to breed their species and is like married off to different people so that she will get children with them. And then one of her children is born to eat, instead of books, he eats humans and like need to suck out their stories instead of books. So she went on a run, and then so in the future she's on a run, and then we have flashback to how she grew up. Super fascinating read. So many interesting concepts. It's such an interesting setup. Honestly, very, very unique. I kind of want to reread it when talking about it now. It definitely just had so many thoughts and ideas that is very interesting to explore and talk about. Then we have Hell Follow With Us by Andrew Josh White, which follows Benji, who is a trans boy and grows up in this post-apocalyptic society where he kind of belongs to, is it like a Christian group, kind of like a very extreme one? And then he comes in contact with the rebels that are trying to survive in this world, but like the Christian group he comes from is trying to like control everything in this post-apocalyptic place. and he just have so much emotions and rage inside of him to how to live in this world and being forced to not live as himself. And I really think that Andrew Johnson White has great ideas. I feel like this book personally didn't hit as much for me as like his second book I absolutely loved. I read this and I knew that I would like more books by the author. I just found some like parts of this that I didn't enjoy as much. However, don't listen to me because I know a lot of people really, really love this. I thought there's a lot of parts of this was very, very cool. It has a lot of body horror and like many, many different aspects of the story is really, really, truly great. I don't have any regrets reading it. I'm going to keep it. It is a stunning, interesting cover. It's a very interesting, fascinating book, but it's also like aspects of it didn't hit as hard for me. But I'm just saying that I know that a lot of people will have enjoyed it and that I enjoyed it. There were things holding me back. And I don't mean to sound negative at all. I'm just saying that also if you read this and like personally had issues with it as well, I feel like you would enjoy more books by the author. And I'm very excited to just continue reading books by this author in general. And the last read of 2022 was the 5th season by Anki Jemison. This was a reread for me, and I was very excited to finally get back to it. This one follows different point of views, and one of them is told in second person, done incredibly well. And we are set in this world where there's these disasters happening all the time. So we go into like different seasons, like a calm season, blah, 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 that basically ruins the world and they need to resettle in this world. And it keeps happening over and over. So we have one point of view where she has magic to feel like the world around her, and people think that people like her that have those powers are the ones making everything go to shit, but they are more so the ones holding back the world from going into even more shit. Then we have another point of view where her son was just murdered and her daughter has been taken by the father, who was the one who also murdered her son, and then she's going out after him to save her daughter. And it is just an incredible story, one of the best fantasies ever written, ever read. It is so weird, like in the beginning when you are starting it, you're like, what is going on? But then when you start getting into the story, when you get the full picture and things come together, absolutely incredible. Could not recommend more. One of my favorites of all time. Then we had a little break until May 2023, where we started up the club again for 6 last books. First one we started up again with was In the Watchful City by As-Jin Lu. This one is like a really short book, as you can maybe tell, and it was really, really weird because I felt I barely misunderstood so much of this book, while others got much more out of it. It was just so funny. It is very clever and different and interesting. So we have this character arriving in this city, and then another character kind of learns about the outside world from that character that makes them want to break out of the world they live in a way. It has some incredibly well written parts, but it is, as you can maybe tell, a very short book. Very interesting concepts and ideas that I apparently missed a bit, but like when we had the discussion, things loosened up a lot. Definitely one to check out. Then we read The Final Strife by Sarah Al Arifi, and this one is the first one in a trilogy, and we follow 2 point of views. One of them having been raised to enter this competition that is held so and so often that the winner gets to be in, like, I was going to say always becomes the president, but it's not called the president of this country. Obviously with advisors, etc. And she was raised to enter this competition and win, but then they were found and everyone was killed, and now she's just been living for years in depression, to not really knowing her meaning of life, because they were supposed to bring down this whole empire because they discriminate after which color you have of your blood. She was like one of like the highborns, but was stolen from her home to be, like, obviously not be loyal to the high bloods and then eventually bring them down, and she was raised by like one of the lower blood ones. And then we have the other main character who is one of the highborn ones, and then she's just struggling to fit in, and she's going to enter these trials and is very unsure if she will make it, and then their paths crosses and they need to help out each other. It was an incredible read. We have these trials, we have this relationship with these 2 girls that is so complex and amazing and explored really well. We explored the politics of this world, how this world is set up, and then things escalate a lot from there. Very, very, very good book. Absolutely loved it. And cannot wait for the final book in the trilogy, because I have read the second one since this, and it was really good as well, so very excited. Then we went a bit back in time and read The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin, which is one of the books in the Hainish cycle by the author, but they all like standalones but within the same world. I don't even know how to describe this. It was a very smart book, and I apparently just struggle with smart books sometimes. Definitely one to reread, definitely one that I enjoyed a lot of parts of, and I want to read like all of the Hainish cycle in general. We basically had just this scientist that leaves his planet and goes to another one, and then a lot of shit happens because he does this. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it had a lot of philosophical ideas, a lot of interesting parts. It is set in this utopia world. I think Ursula is a brilliant, brilliant author, and she writes so incredibly well. So Ursula can never go wrong. Then we read The Wicked Bargain by Game called Novoa, who follow our main character who is non-binary and has hidden fire magic that they need to hide. Their father entered this deal with the devil so many years ago, and now the devil comes to take their father's soul, and then our main character goes on this journey to try to get their father back. And then we have this unreliable demon that keeps popping up here and there, and we also have another character that the main character meets that is part of this other crew, and then they start really caring for this other crew, even though they also still obviously miss their old crew and want to find their father. I thought that this was incredibly fun. It did exactly what I wanted to do, hit the right places in the whole book. It is a really, really fun journey of our main character coming to terms with their powers, just finding so much confidence in themselves to go on this journey, and it was so fun, so absolutely recommend. Then obviously we couldn't help but put on This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal Al-Mohtar and Max Gladstone, which went viral, and I had been wanting to read it before that, but then just like forgot about it, and then it went viral, and then I couldn't stop thinking about it, so here we are. This one follows these two characters that write letters to each other through time, basically, called Red and Blue, and then they just communicate through time. So the whole thing is all in their letters. And I think that it is probably an incredible book, but I think I missed a lot of like the subtlety that were probably between the lines. But I can definitely see why it's so beloved. I feel like I could reread it to like see what more I could pick up on a second time. But I can definitely see like why it is such a, what's it called, highly considered book, because it's definitely like done with so much thought. I just missed more like world building, etc. But it was still like an astonishing read because it's very different and cool for what it's doing. That leaves us with the last book we read for Facing Gaze, which is almost a bit sad to say, like an official group book at least for a monthly pick. Ended the club with Gilda Stories by Javel Gomez. This one is a classic, and we follow our main character that is turned into a vampire, and we basically follow her at different times in her life. Like, we have literally split in parts for different times in her life over many years to see this life of this vampire and how she learns about the world and how she lives in this world as a black vampire. It was not at all what I expected, like literally not at all what I expected. But it was still such a journey that, again, I feel like I definitely could reread and experience again. It was just really interesting to me to see different characters at different times. Really interesting. I just love vampire lore in general. So it ended up being a very fascinating and good read to end the club with. And now you have many queer sci-fi fantasy recs that you could check out, whatever sounds interesting to you. I will again leave obviously all the live shows down below if you're interested in any more in-depth discussions. But we had a lot of fun, and I'm sad to say goodbye, even though I said goodbye like October last year. But yeah, we already had one 24-hour readathon where we stayed away for 24 hours, and it was crazy. I mean, we already had one before that, but that was when the club was still running. And now we have it again. And then we will probably have more rounds. We shall see how it goes. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your queer sci-fi fantasy recs down below for I always love suggestions. And you should see me soon in a new video. Leave a rainbow emoji down below if you enjoyed this. And you should see me soon. Goodbye.